Okay, what do you do when your own mind feels like your biggest obstacle? We're about to jump into a really profound answer to that, and it comes from a place you might not expect, a centuries-old spiritual text. This is a raw, honest conversation about weakness, self-doubt, and how to find a confidence that just feels unshakable.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at the inner struggle that starts this whole conversation. Then we'll get into two huge questions she asks, one about weakness and another about confidence. We'll explore the divine perspective she receives and then see how it all leads to this ultimate, really practical sense of assurance. Let's get into it.
All right, so first up, a saint's inner struggle. Before we can really appreciate the advice here, we have to get into the mindset of the person asking the questions. This whole thing kicks off in a moment of crisis, where deep focus gets totally derailed by doubt.
So, our guide in this is Saint Gertrude the Great. Now, she's preparing for communion, which is, a moment that requires total spiritual presence, but she just hits a wall, and I think it's a wall that a lot of us can probably relate to.
Yeah, the text says she was hit by a crowd of importunate thoughts. I just love that phrasing. This isn't just one stray thought, it's a whole crowd, a mental flood of noise. And it's such a powerful reminder that, hey, even a saint can feel completely overwhelmed by their own mind.
So right in the middle of this mental chaos, she gets this incredible piece of assurance. The message is basically this: the simple act of turning for help with real hope, even if it's just for a second, just one glance, is incredibly powerful. It just totally reframes the whole struggle.
Now, you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Problem solved. But for Gertrude, it actually does the opposite. It opens up this even bigger, more philosophical can of worms. And that leads to our first big question, which is all about empathy. She's basically asking something that I think we've all wondered. How can someone, or something, that has never experienced a flaw, that's never had that internal conflict, truly understand what it's like for us? For people who live with it every single day. Is real compassion even possible without that shared experience?
And here she lays it out so clearly. She points right at the core of her doubt. She says, look, you are perfect, without any internal struggle. So how? How does that perfection actually connect with all of our imperfections? She's demanding to know the mechanics of it all.
So, how does the text answer such a deep question? Well, the perspective she gets isn't about some far-off, untouchable being. No, it's actually an answer that's completely rooted in a radical closeness to the human experience.
The response immediately goes to a core idea in theology, that empathy is possible because of a shared experience, not in spite of a lack of it. The whole point was to become like us precisely so that temptation and weakness could be understood and helped from the inside out.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The text says our confidence, our trust, isn't just a nice feeling to have, it's the actual thing that forges the connection. It's described as an eye that pierces through all the doubt. And this confidence is presented as being so powerful, so binding, that the text says it's not possible for me to abandon her. Just think about that. Impossible.
Okay, so that explanation about the power of confidence is amazing. But it immediately creates another problem for Gertrude. A more relatable one, maybe. It's a real chicken and egg situation.
So she follows up with, okay, that's great for people who have confidence, but what about the rest of us? If this powerful confidence is a gift, what are you supposed to do if you look inside yourself and that gift just isn't there? What then?
And here are her exact words. You can almost hear the logic clicking in her mind, pointing out the paradox. If it's a gift, and I feel deprived of it, what am I supposed to do? It feels like a catch-22, right? You need confidence to get the help, but it feels like you need help just to get the confidence. It's a loop. The final answer here is a total game changer. It shifts the entire conversation away from how we're feeling on the inside, which can change from moment to moment, and towards what we can do on the outside. It's a practical path forward for anyone who feels stuck in doubt. And the solution is so beautifully simple. It doesn't say, hey, just feel more confident. No, it lays out actual steps. 1, just push back on your doubt, even a tiny bit. 2, lean on what's already been promised in Scripture. And 3, this is the most radical part, just say the words of trust, even if you don't feel it in your heart.
And this is the climax of the whole dialogue. The instruction is to literally profess trust as an act of will, to use your lips, your voice, to speak these incredibly bold statements of faith, even if your heart isn't 100% on board yet. The idea is that the action itself can actually create the feeling.
So the huge takeaway here is this really powerful idea. Your actions, even just your words, can lead your heart. You don't have to wait until you feel confident to start acting with confidence. The act of declaring trust can literally be more powerful than the feeling of doubt. So we end up right back where we started. On one side, you've got that crowd of importunate thoughts, and on the other, this potential for an unbreakable confidence. And what this incredible text suggests is that the bridge between those two things isn't a feeling, it's an action. Which really just leaves us with a question for you to think about. In your own moments of doubt, what gives you the confidence to move forward?